Welcome to Amanda Spann's Minimal Viable Podcast, the show that gives you a real and relatable look at the world of tech and entrepreneurship from industry all-stars. Today's guest is Bridget Daniel, Executive Vice President of Wilco Electronic Systems, once one of the few Black family-owned private cable operators in the country, as well as the founder of Mulet, an empowerment community and speaker series focused on women interested in technology entrepreneurship. We'll discuss the digital divide and web literacy issues, particularly in the Philadelphia area, Wilco Electronics' part in bridging that divide, and the navigation of the growth, expansion, and acquisition of her family's company. MVP is brought to you by Simplero, the all-in-one software for online entrepreneurs. Most digital coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs are using 7+ online tools that still don't meet their needs. Simplero reduces the headache of product management by allowing you to host your mailing list, online courses, membership communities, marketing automation, and digital products all on one platform. It's my personal go-to tool of choice for selling my ebooks and courses, and I think it's pretty affordable, simple to use, and easy to get started. So if you like to experience less tech and less stress when selling your content or products online, check out Simplero at simplero.com. That's SIMPLERO.com. Now let's start the show. Hi, Bridget. Welcome to the MVP podcast. Really happy to have you. I feel like it's been so long since we talked.
I know.
I feel like it's been years.
It has. I am thrilled and honored and so pleased to join you, Amanda. Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know you are very busy. You're an executive. You're a mom. You're a wife. Running the show in Philly. So I know your time is very precious. So this is a big deal. And I'm happy that we're able to catch up. Like, I feel like the podcast has been a huge, it's been a great excuse for me to, catch up with everyone who I just needed to talk to anyway. So.
Exactly. It is. It's such a dualistic benefit. I love it. Very cool for you.
Yeah, it feels very rewarding. It's just very great to just be able to, catch up with people and just see how they're doing. And I'm very excited to hear about, everything you have going on. I know it's been a big year, 2 years for you. So I'm excited to hear more about what's going on with you and what's next. So our listeners, for those who, you're a staple in Philly, but outside of Philadelphia, people may not be as familiar as the major work that you guys do in that city. And so I would love to hear kind of the backstory about you and your family and Wilco Electronic Systems. And, I know this is a family-run company, so, how growing up in kind of a tech and telecom conglomerate family has really, impacted your life and your perspective on business.
Absolutely. So Wilco is a unique company. We are a private cable company. We started that business about 42 years ago. Actually, I was born the same year the company started. And when cable was first coming into the cities of the urban cities and all around the country, in Philadelphia, my father was one of the first to bring cable television to multifamily units, basically apartment buildings, etc. When there was really a large amount of providers everywhere kind of really starting to wire up the city of Philadelphia. So he was one of the first to really start just bringing cable infrastructure into Philadelphia. And what had happened around probably in the 80s and probably early 80s, late 70s, large swaths of underrepresented communities, mostly minority communities, particularly in neighborhoods that were either quote-unquote unsafe or considered quote-unquote the hood, we really started to look at those neighborhoods as our market because they were our people. We are from there. We know what that looks like. We had no problem serving them. A lot of providers did not want to go into those neighborhoods. Those were just markets that we wanted to and felt honored to be able to bring that new technology, which was at the time cable, into those communities. And that started the legacy, being a provider of cable services and technology services to those who needed it the most and to those who people did not want to serve. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in that business. And I think what has happened over time, of course, technology has changed, and now what was cable is now internet, and now what is internet is now even something else. Now we'll get into that later, but it seemed to be able to see the evolution of the city as an operator and as a community provider and as a company that has had this mission of impact long before impact was a trend, which I think now we're seeing much more of it, is an honor that I definitely wanted to continue. And that's why I came back after, Spelman and Georgetown to law school and came back to Philadelphia and said, okay, we're going to do this.
So did you always know that you were going to come back and run a family business, or was it something
Oh, my God,
that
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think when I was growing up, I thought cable was the most boring thing, Amanda. I was just like, whatever. Although I would see all these, pamphlets about cable, and 80s and cable was, really coming popular. Because at that time, cable was still, a luxury, right? You had to have some money to have, cable television. And there wasn't even a lot of channels. But, I think, when I got to law school, I started becoming much more attuned to just what it was, the actual ability to really transform how people communicated with each other, and how they consumed and how they actually got their information, and to realize that we were a part of that. We were actually a part of access. That's when it started to dawn on me, wow, we are in this, and this is really important. And that's when I knew that this is part of my DNA. This is part of my life, purpose, is to also continue this idea of being a bridge, right? Being a bridge to access. That's what I just fell in love with. That's what I'm driven by, and that's what's been the new just mantra and legacy and really tagline that we've been really moving forward with. We are not a cable company. We are a technology access provider, an integrator.
So what do you think, you serve thousands of people across the city. What do you think it has meant for them? Do you think that they think of it in terms of access to more information, or, are they looking at it, there's our local neighborhood cable provider,
I think before there was more of an internet presence, right, and it was just television, I think people just looked at television as television and not as access. I think, it's like even companies, large ones like Comcast. Comcast wants everyone in at least to think that they are an innovation company, technology company, and they are. They absolutely are. But when people think of your cable company, you think of a bill you sometimes just don't want to sometimes pay. So it really is all about perspective, right? It's all about being, either you're the customer or the operator. It's still an interesting relationship. However, I think to being the Black business community in Philadelphia, that's where our purpose was much more of a beacon, and that's when that concept of being an access provider, you would probably see that more, right? Because that's where you'll see just the importance of not only just being an operator in cable, but also being a business that is also sustained in its process of succession and as generational, et cetera, which we rarely see in minority communities. And I think that's why it's been important for Philadelphia, and Philadelphia has rallied around our company and our business and our mission. When internet started to become more popular, again, like in the 90s, going to 2000s, we started to hear more nationally about digital divide. And of course, we were right in the middle of that. So I think, when again in the early parts of our days in Philly, cable was just television. But when the internet started becoming more of a not even a luxury, a utility, right? You can't even live without it at this point in time. The importance of having a company be a provider of that absolutely speaks volumes. And it definitely is something that we have, been lauded and respected for. And, it's a labor of love, but it also is a labor for our community. And we've been very proud of that.
Well, it's certainly something to be commended. Most companies don't make it 5 years, let alone 42. And then, just to be in like the telecommunications space, there's just not many players in that space in general. So I definitely think, our hats are off to you, and you guys have done something very epic. And really
Thank
built a
you.
legacy. But not your family, but the city of Philadelphia. So, I know last year I read that you guys were bought out by Comcast. The company is still very much operational, but I'm curious to know like how that has changed the landscape of the company itself. And then I know you managed the transition period. So, like, what was that like, especially just like, as you transition, it's difficult enough to transition the company, but, you're doing other things in the community. You're a wife, you're a mother. Like, what was that process like?
I know, and I'm glad we haven't heard that mother role come into play yet. So we'll just keep it going. So about a year and a half ago, after 40 years, we and I always make the correction to people. We were not bought out by Comcast. However, our cable division was acquired by Comcast, right? Because we have different parts to our company. But I think, when people think of a buyout, they think, buyout. So for the most part, the cable division was definitely the large part of our business, though. I mean, the largest part that we controlled and owned and operated, and I was mostly a part of, was absolutely working with our cable subscribers. So when we had the announcement, became, of course, viral per se, and it resonated not just in Philadelphia, but even beyond, because we were one of the last African-American-owned operators in the country. So for us to finally have our exit, or to have an exit, was very pivotal, and it was very political, and it was very delicately balanced, because again, like we said, that being a generational business and being a pillar in the African community of a provider of access was very important to a lot of people in the city. So having to have conversations with people in City Hall and the community and the business community to talk about this was really not just even about us. It was really about what this looks like for the city was very important and significant. Did you find that people were like kind of responsive to that, or was there a lot of pushback? I feel like with any move people make, it's just I know. Yeah. Like even like I just saw like even like Jay-Z invested in a cannabis company, and there was just so much pushback about like why didn't he invest in like a black-owned cannabis company? And it's just like the company is still making amazing moves on the social impact side, but in like they're doing what's in the best interest of the company, and there's a larger impact here, right? Like you guys could possibly do more in partnership with Comcast than you could, as a freestanding company, but people don't necessarily look at it that way. So what were the responses like? I think it was a little mixed. We had more responses of concern from the community, which I knew would be the case, because one of the reasons why we were so important is because we were also more affordable, because of the designation we had as a private cable company versus a multiple service operator. So multiple service operator is a company like Comcast or Time Warner, very large companies, cable companies that have to then go to city council for franchises, right? So that means you get a franchise, you cover the whole entire city. You can be single family anywhere, you have to franchise, boom. That's where all that lobbying money goes to, right? Government, fairs, etc. When you're a private cable operator, you are providing services to very niched homes, niched communities, multifamily, MDU, multiple dwelling unit buildings. So for us, to be able to sell that component to it, and to be very niche, the community, they were a little bit more concerned because we could have different pricing. We could go cheaper. We could be more niche to them, and I think they wanted to make sure that would still be the case. So those are conversations we went into the community with. To the outside of those communities, however, there was a lot of actually congratulations, right? Because there was the optics of having an exit like us and who we are to Comcast resonates well for everybody, for you, for underserved community founders, for entrepreneurs who are budding, everyone that wants to be able to, have the dream of building up a company and selling it. That we did. And we didn't just do it to anybody. We did it to Comcast. So, the significance of that in the community, a lot of people just also was so proud of. And they were just like, great job, because it didn't have to go that way. It could have went a whole nother way. So, there's always going to be pros and cons, and, we definitely saw them all. But at the end of the day, when the interests of the residents are our concern and their need and ability and absolute right to have the very best of all services, the fastest speeds, the fastest infrastructure, that sometimes it was hard for us to be able to do because infrastructure is absolutely capitally expensive. There was a lot of decisions and a lot of considerations we had and had to think about when we made the decision. So there was a mixed bag about emotions and thoughts, but I think at the end of the day, everyone just came to the consensus that this was the best move for the city, for the residents, and really just for the ability of Wilco to ascend and do other things that we can absolutely now do because we've had an exit.
So what's next for Wilco?
So one thing that I never really thought about when, just my father was starting the business in the 70s and 80s, what we did by going into a building and wiring it and then offering technology services to communities was really more about integration rather than being a cable operator, which we were, but we were creating the content. We weren't creating the channels. We weren't creating the cable. We were purchasing it and then also providing it for, again, because we had the designation for private cable operator, we were providing it at an affordable cost. But we were really at the root of it. We were integrating. So after about maybe 6 months, really about 6 months into just the deal, right, getting into the deal, working out the logistics, it takes a long time for something like that to happen. It took about a year, really, for that whole transition and the whole deal to transpire. But about 6 months into it, I started to really wonder what our future would be. And what I realized was that we actually had a great model. So in addition to our cable division, because like I said, we have divisions in our company, we also had a security and surveillance and a video surveillance and a door access business, meaning a business that also went to the same customer base, buildings, multifamily units, and provided either cameras or surveillance or how you enter and exit buildings or homes, like door access, like how you have a key fob or things like that. That's what we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a business that I never liked, though. I just never thought it was interesting at all. Just like I thought about cable when I was in college. I never thought cable was interesting, and I never thought our security surveillance side was interesting, and I never really worked in that side. But then, I don't even know when it happened, though, Amanda. I was, just thinking about our business, and I was like, we have this existing internet cloud service managed door access integration services, and then when we started to look at the other services that were going more into home, like the IoT, the Internet of Things. So you're talking now about the platforms that are arranging and maintaining your thermostats, your doors, all the sensors, all the things, the Alexa, all those things that you're using that are now controlled by your phone, that's IoT. And when you overlay IoT on our security surveillance, it now all makes sense. It now becomes access, again, just a different type of access. So fast forward from the 70s and 80s when we were providing cable into multi-dwelling units, we're now providing smart access into multi-dwelling units because we're just integrating more platforms. It's not cable anymore. It's now working with partners that have IoT platforms. And that is very exciting. You go to any Best Buy, any Home Depot, anywhere you go into the country that's about home or electronics, the first thing you see, IoT products, thermostats, doors, sensors, all of that. That's driven by products talking to products. That's where we are in the age of this communication. It's products talking to products, and that's what we're integrating now. And it's very, very exciting.
Well, I'm glad you're thrilled about your next steps. You're really excited about where the company is going. And I think we're just on the cusp of what IoT could be. Home security looks a certain way right now, but it can dynamically transform over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So
Absolutely.
Very bright future ahead. So I know we talked about Wilco quite a bit now, but I know you do a number of other things within the Philly tech scene, and you're a staple there.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about, you running your organization, Mulet, and just to hear a little bit about it for the listeners who aren't as familiar with it, and like why it was important for you to create.
So one of the things that, again, being on the side of the operator and a provider of technology, one of the things that I also felt very committed and privileged to even be a part of is also being a creator of technology. And I think, of course, it's a national conversation that's been going on all around, the country and the globe, really, about just the lack of inclusivity and diversity in technology because it's so groundbreaking and universal. But the reason why anything is universal is because it's dynamic, but the reason that makes it dynamic is because it's diverse. And I think that's where we are as a city. We're starting to see more and more of a need, an actual intentional need to have more inclusivity in this innovation space, tech space, whatever space that's growing, it needs to be inclusive. And for a city like Philadelphia that's minority majority, like a lot of very major urban cities, Atlanta, D.C., Boston, there's a lack of people of color or even gender that are also reaping the rewards of this, innovation renaissance, whether it's IoT, bioscience, life science, and, just software development, and all the things that, of course, you see that are very pervasive and used widely. So, I've always been, again, the daughter of a Black entrepreneur, and I think one of the things that I've always wanted to also do is help, at least create spaces for other entrepreneurs. So Mulet was created about 5 years ago because we had our 5-year reunion just this past May.
Congratulations.
Those spaces. Thank you. It was a great event. We had it at the Comcast New Technology Center, and it was wonderful, but it was just a celebration of the spaces now needed to continue people being a part of this city growth that we're experiencing. So for the most part, we are an organization that helps bridge the gap. We're an organization that helps create networks, and we are an organization that helps at least create events where we can be more around each other and have that normalized so that it doesn't feel odd when you are trying to hire, work with, or even, offer a contract of some sort to an underestimated, really, founder or employee, et cetera. And it's important. And I think, outside of Wilco growing, being able to provide another impactful legacy around just doing my own little part to help, that's what Mulet is. And, it's definitely another, not even a labor. It's just a passion that still needs to be a part of and still tries to make it a very intentional part for the city to have inclusivity at the top of mind, absolutely, for everybody, whether you're an academic institution, a corporation institution, government, we need to have that top of mind. And I think for the first time in a long time, there's probably the most intention that we've seen ever for Philadelphia to do just that. There's a lot of crossover, a lot of cross-sector collaboration happening because we realize that our asset is our diversity. And that's something that I think we're seeing a lot of just momentum behind.
So where would you like to see the Philadelphia tech community in the next few years? Like, how would you like it to evolve, and what do you think needs to change immediately for that, for the next phase of Philadelphia tech to happen?
There's a banker who used to work at PNC here, and he then wanted to just, I think, have a life change. And then he decided to do a fellowship with the Commerce Department to help just sort out how to start making a more inclusive environment in our city. And I recently saw him at a barbecue over the weekend, and I was like, oh, so what you doing after the fellowship? He was like, I'm actually a math teacher. I was like, what? A math teacher? I was like, wow, you went from banking to being a math teacher. And he was like, Bridget, it's the best thing I've ever done. And I was like, so what high school are you at? And he was like, I'm at Strawberry Mansion. And I was like, wow. And I don't know if people know about Philadelphia and Strawberry Mansion, but it is definitely a neighborhood that has its challenges, quote unquote. So he's in the ground, in the trenches. And I was like, so how is it? He was like, I love it. I was just like, wow. He was like, even though people think these kids are maybe not even going to be, quote unquote, worth anything, they are so hungry and eager to learn everything about STEM, everything. Tech, they just want it. They're in it, and they're so smart, but they're not given the chance. And I think that's a long way to answer your question around where Philly is evolving, is that it would be great to see the city realizing the value and just the gems that are all right here, that just need resources and training and or people that care a damn about making sure that people are involved that have not been involved before. Like, cities just really get me with, we need to bring in all these other people from all these other cities. And not saying that's wrong. If we could bring you, Amanda Spann, to Philadelphia, you know how much we'd be happy to have you come to Philadelphia?
Oh,
great.
Thank you.
But if you didn't come, there's another Amanda Spann in some form or fashion who's sitting right there who also could just be just as great. And that's the thing that a lot of cities, like not just Philadelphia, but a lot of cities are just missing the boat on. And, you know, we had a big, large bid that the city did a year ago when we were, you know, of course, when there was a whole gold rush to have Amazon come to whatever city that you'd be lucky to come to. But for Philly, we actually did a really great bid. And I was, you know, very honored to be a part of the submission. I actually was in a lot of the videos that they had to woo Amazon to come. You know, there's a whole mayoral submission launch that I spoke. It was just wonderful. But the part that gives me still the goosebumps is how quickly and how effectively and how impactfully the entire city came together in 6 weeks to pull off one of the largest collaborative efforts ever, just to get a company to come. And wouldn't it be great to do that just on a simple basis around inclusive innovation? I just feel like we should take that template and do it in many other ways so that we're reaping the benefits of what we have. Because the reason why people were so excited about Amazon is because it's going to bring in more talent, bring in more jobs, etc. Okay, we can bring in more talent, but we have talent right here, right here in our backyards. We have to cultivate it, value it, and absolutely just acknowledge that it's here. So I'm sorry. I get very impassioned.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
You know,
it reminds me of that quote. I think it goes something along the lines of, like, you know, talent is equally distributed, opportunity is not. And
yes, I love that.
If if you could do this in 6 weeks, think about what you could do if you took like a quarter of the year to just dedicate to transforming the city, to being, you know, STEM-enabled, to have given people access to education, and not just college students or high school students, but like adults who are tech curious, or people who want to learn, you know, new skills, transferable skills, and apply what they have to get the jobs of the future. Like, what would that look like for the city, and how could that change the future dynamic of what Philadelphia is?
Oh, my goodness. It would just change so much. And the reason why I started with the story about my friend, or my colleague, I should say, is because, I would never have thought about being a teacher and taking a life pivot from such a role like banking, right? Like, who does that? But he just seemed so happy, Amanda. He just seemed so fulfilled. And he just shed a light that I was just like, so how is it? How are they? He was like, they're fantastic, Bridget. They just want knowledge. They just want opportunity. That's all. Resources. And the ideas that could come out of those, you know, neighborhoods and communities that just could be given that stuff, Jesus. You know, so I've seen it just happen in different programs I've been in, you know, of course, over the course of the years, where, you know, it's just, there's so many examples of how it could be life-changing and impactful as the growth and whereas, you know, economically developing the city, because Philadelphia is unique in the sense that it's one of the last cities that still has a lot of room to grow and develop. A lot of these cities are already overgrown. They're building up. They're not building wide. Philadelphia is still building wide. We still have, in the city of Philadelphia, we still have acres of miles of acres of just almost like woods that's just there. So there's still so much promise. And that's why if we don't start incorporating these types of thoughts and actions and intentions now, it's just we're going to lose out. And that's a shame because we really have so much of the best of both worlds, where we're located, our geographic location, where we're situated between New York and D.C., where we have waterways. We now won a Super Bowl. We're now trusting the process. Like we're doing, like we have skyscrapers up everywhere. Like this is such the best time to be in Philadelphia. So if that's the case, then make sure the opportunity is there for everyone. Absolutely, as much as we can. And that's what I'd love to see the city do to evolve, not even just the tech community, because we're so much beyond tech. It's now innovation that we're at, innovation, because innovation is almost anything that's done differently to make it better. And another reason why I love just the IoT side of what we're doing is because there's a nice, really great model for workforce even in that. The ability for, you don't have to even go to coding. You don't have to even go to school per se. You don't have to have, a whole very expensive college degree. But if you don't want to go that route, because that's a lot of times people don't want to do that, then there is still a way to make a very good living by integrating platforms and the ability to also have technology understood to many people and also have many people participate in its growth. Because there's more of a lower hanging fruit to it, but yet it's still a nice entryway into a higher paid or a higher echelon of technology. And we just have to find out more of those opportunities. So it's exciting. It's a lot of work, but there's definitely a nice idea and model that Philly and other cities could have. And I would love to see that manifest. And I would love to still be a part of making the change there.
For sure. Well, I'm definitely sure you're going to be leading the charge and leading the way. And I'm excited to hear, a little bit more about, when you heard about Wilco, but what's next for you personally? Is there any, passion projects that you're working on? Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah. Again, we're doing a lot of work with Mulet, around, I've been really saying this more intentionally, but really bridging innovation disparities, particularly for entrepreneurs and particularly in the tech innovation space. So it hasn't been announced yet, but there might be some key role that Mulet is really positioning to play to really help bring more entrepreneurs into the city of Philadelphia and to have them a part of programs to accelerate their immediate growth by twofold, particularly in areas that we don't see a lot of underrepresented or underestimated founders in. So it's really exciting. I think one thing about Philadelphia that is also very key is that outside of maybe Silicon Valley or Boston, you don't really have a large life science biotech sector that's growing rapidly. But we do. We have it, and it's right in West Philadelphia. We literally had about $5 billion exits just in 1 year. In 1 year, right in West Philadelphia. So knowing that, because we have Penn, Drexel, all these, one of the world-renowned cancer research. We are one of the world-renowned gene pool research hubs. We are. I don't think even people really know that, but Philly is it for life science biotech industry, and the opportunity to be a part of making that more inclusive is exciting. So hopefully, crossing fingers that will take place, and if it does, that will probably be a big also flag that I'd like to help create and make known for the next probably 20 months or so.
All right. Well, I will definitely stay tuned and make sure, I am abreast on everything you guys are doing out there. And
absolutely.
I think it's going to be major, so I'm excited for you. I only have one more question for you, and it's our listener submitted question. Each episode we ask the listeners to write in. I make, some of our listeners privy to, who's going to be on the show and ask like one of the questions. This week, it's from a journalist who asked to remain anonymous, but they said that they've been working in the industry for about a decade, and that, media, telecom, and technology are emerging more than ever. And so this person's looking to figure out what's next for them in their career. They love to work for a startup or possibly found one. So they just want to know from you what trends or opportunities in this industry in particular do you believe are worth exploring over the next 2 to 3 years, considering all the evolution that's happening right now?
So I think, I actually think cannabis is interesting. I actually think IoT, of course, is very, very interesting. I think artificial intelligence, facial recognition, you're definitely going to see much more of that becoming a platform for technology growth. And if you're also looking at media per se, content creation, still content is king, or I like to say queen. It is still driving the market for media, whether you're creating it, whether you're creating the platform to distribute it, or whether you're, definitely even making social media around it, which in itself is content. But content is still driving the market. So I think if you are trying to blend and, balance and complement media and tech, it's a great time. I know there's a couple of great cohorts that are forming in Philadelphia. And, Philadelphia is one of the largest media companies in the world. So you definitely don't want to ever rule out coming here and seeing the opportunities and programs that are definitely being created literally every 6 months. So if they would like any more information off record, I would love to make myself available to that particular listener, and I'm excited for them. And if they, want to make Philadelphia their home, we would love to have them.
All right. Well, you guys heard that. So that's a big offer, so take advantage of that. I'll definitely be sure to put you in touch. But thank you so much. This has been great. Lots of great insights and tips, and I'm really excited about what's next for you, what's next for Wilco, what's next for Mulet in the city of Philadelphia. Yeah. So we'll definitely be in touch. We definitely got to come to Philly soon and catch up and attend one of your events. So
go Eagles!
I'm excited to do it. You had to throw that in there, didn't you?
I did. Absolutely. Let's not forget. Let's not forget. It still happened just 2 years ago. It was just... Thank you so much, Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you.
It was a joy. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a great one. We'll talk soon. Thanks for listening to MVP. If you'd like to hear more from me or our guests, visit mvpodcast.substack.com for exclusive content, updates, and announcements. And if you love the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us, or follow us at The Amanda Spann and MV Podcast. Thanks again, and see you next week.